With the Sonic movie pretty much everything but confirmed to get a sequel, what can we expect from the second movie? Let's discuss right now.
I got hot sauce in my bag, swag.
Hello there, beautiful human. My name is RidersDX. Welcome to my channel, where today, it's just another day of quarantine life, you know? It's just, doing nothing. So, during quarantine, actually, not much of my life has changed. Okay, that's kind of a lie, to be honest. My work life has changed in the sense that I'm home half of the time now, but I've always been a sedentary person. So sedentary people stay in bed, play video games, and something that relates to this video, rewatch movies. So I'd actually not seen a Sonic movie more than once before this past week. I mean, that wasn't my intention, but life as a pharmacy resident is, fun. But with this added time home, I decided to revisit the movie, and I actually enjoyed it more than I did the first time, which happens to me a lot, to be honest. You know, whenever I watch a movie for the very first time, I always have these expectations going into it, and sometimes the movie just doesn't actually not sometimes, most of the time the movie doesn't meet most of those expectations, so I end up not really liking it that much the first time I see it, but then I see it for a couple times afterwards, and I end up liking the movie a lot more because I kind of let go of those expectations and just enjoy the movie for what it actually is, and the Sonic movie was no exception. I mean, I did enjoy the movie when I first went to it, but I kind of felt like there were some parts to it that I thought were underwhelming, I guess. I guess I was expecting so much more in terms of story just because I'm a huge Sonic fan and I love those really big complex stories, kind of like the adventure games and Sonic 06 for instance. But then I rewatched this movie again and I actually really appreciated it. I really appreciated the humor, the overall vibe of it, and just how much it actually does feel like Sonic. So it then got me thinking, with all the various hints pointing to a possible sequel, one, what are some things I'd like to see in that sequel? And two, how likely are they to actually happen? Let's go ahead and just discuss. And number one, I would like to see Tails in the second movie, and you know what? I'm not even gonna beat around the bush for this. I know and you know that we are definitely gonna get Tails in a sequel if it's going to happen. I mean, we got literal confirmation from the ending scene in the first movie. You can't get any more official than that. All you really are missing is just an official statement from the team itself, but the team doesn't typically make official statements like that. Usually they would review that stuff through actual trailers or promo and such, which we're a long ways away from. But there's actually some comments that I found in this interview that Pat Casey did, who is a writer on the original Sonic movie, that actually confirmed that Tails had a much bigger role in the first movie. So here's what he had to say.
So you mentioned you did play with it. So was there actual versions written with Tails and the whole thing, or was it just sort of an idea you were talking about?
Not a whole draft of the script. Earlier versions of the story, it took us a while to kind of come up with what the ultimate story was. There were earlier versions where we spent a little more time back on Sonic's world, and Tails was already Sonic's best friend there before Sonic comes to Earth. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it just wasn't quite working. So we started over with this whole new idea of Sonic being stuck on Earth by himself. And if he had Tails with him, he wouldn't be by himself, and that kind of character story wouldn't really work. But we love Tails and we wanted him in there. So we always planned, once we realized he wasn't going to be in the body of the movie, we were like, well, Tails will show up at the end. He'll be our Nick Fury, and that'll get everyone stoked for a part two, hopefully, where we get to do the whole thing and really give Tails some exciting stuff to do, which I'm really looking forward to, hopefully.
This further cements the fact that the writers want Tails in this franchise and that they were trying to have him in the first movie, but it just didn't work out. And to be honest, I think it was a good decision because they spent the first movie really establishing who Sonic is and establishing him as a hero. And so I really think that was a good idea to just keep the first movie simple because you're already introducing both Sonic and Dr. Robotnik into this franchise, which is gonna take a lot. I think a whole film is perfectly justifiable for just those two characters. But in the second movie, some ideas I have in terms of how Tails gets introduced, I want to see Tails meet and get to know Sonic for the very first time because I don't think we have any kind of visual media that covers that for more than 3 minutes. You know, we had that one scene in Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, for instance, that showed Tails beating Sonic. We also had this flashback in Sonic Adventure where Tails first met Sonic and started following him. You know, we never actually got to see the full story of how Tails met Sonic. We might have seen it in like comics, like I'm not entirely sure. I'm not big on the comics in the Sonic universe, but in terms of like actual like cutscenes or television or movies, we've yet to see that. And so I'd really love to see how they would tackle that relationship, because we've always been introduced to Sonic and Tails as if they had already met each other and that they were already best friends. I guess an idea that I have is that maybe Tails could have met Longclaw shortly after Sonic escaped, and that is how Tails learns of Sonic, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got. And number 2, speaking of Longclaw, I'd actually love to see more of Longclaw, as I think it would create opportunities to help further flesh out Sonic's origin. Perhaps maybe the origins of his power. I did see some deleted scenes where it actually was intended for Longclaw to come with Sonic into the human world, but then Longclaw passes away, which is actually really dark, and so I can kind of understand why they decided not to keep that. But the way that they left it in the movie, it's actually a possibility that Longclaw might be alive. I mean, it's not likely because the last time we saw Longclaw, it was just her facing off against a whole tribe of echidnas, and so I kind of doubt that she survived that, but you never know, honestly. And I think it'd be really interesting to see Longclaw have a bigger role in this movie, because it'd be really cool to see a little bit more of what Sonic's origins are like. You know, we didn't get too much of like his infantile stages in the first movie beyond like a few minutes, and so I think it'd be cool to explain a little bit more beyond that if it relates to the plot of the second film. You know, we can't let it just come out of nowhere. It has to really impact the second film's plot in a significant way for it to work. So in terms of this actually happening, I'm really not sure. It looks like they intended Longclaw to just be the side character in the first movie. I would not be surprised if that was it, that she was really just a plot device to help explain Sonic's origin. I mean, they were originally going to actually have her die on screen, and so, you know, that's kind of what my suspicions lie, but maybe they'll have a change of heart and kind of see that Longclaw may actually benefit the story in the second movie, and so you never know. And number 3, and this is probably one of the higher ones up on my list, I really want to see the Chaos Emeralds get incorporated into this film. Super Sonic's absence in the first film was very much felt, as that's always been traditionally how Sonic would tackle like a big climactic event in any like big adventure. But I also understand why it wasn't implemented yet. They were focused on really introducing Sonic and Dr. Robotnik into this franchise, and it might have just been a little bit too much to try to fit in the whole lore of the Chaos Emeralds into the first film. And so I understand it. We do kind of get a little bit left in terms of like interpretation with where Sonic's power comes from. I have a feeling that they're going to try to relate it to the Chaos Emeralds. You know, I would love to see the Chaos Emeralds get introduced and give us a chance to explore the backstory to them. And so that's probably the most obvious route that they're gonna go. I mean, Pat Casey did mention in his interview that he is aware of Super Sonic, and that he actually did mention that he would need the Chaos Emeralds to have Super Sonic in the film. Well, just listen to the comment yourself so you know what I'm talking about.
Is Super Sonic gonna make an appearance?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, you'd have to get a hold of a lot of Chaos Emeralds to make that happen.
Yeah.
So we'll. So I can't really say, but we are all aware of Super Sonic.
And so it looks like the writers are aware that Super Sonic is a staple in the franchise, and that the Chaos Emeralds would also have to come along with that. And so I do think it's something that they're probably going to plan eventually. I'm not sure if they're going to do it in the second film, to be honest. I mean, we're already introducing Tails and possibly Knuckles, which I'll talk about later on in the video. So it might be a little bit too much to try to fit into a movie, but you never know, honestly. I think it'd be cool to at least get introduced to the Chaos Emeralds. I can very clearly see Dr. Robotnik discovering what they are and trying to utilize their powers, and of course Sonic discovering them too and utilizing their powers as well. You know, it might just be the most epic thing to see on screen. So whenever they decide to introduce it, I'm really looking forward to it. And number 4, I really want to witness Dr. Robotnik's complete transformation. And so in the first film, we only got to see the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the devastation that Dr. Robotnik can cause. Remember how in the original trilogy games, Dr. Robotnik's final bosses only got more and more enormous and intense? I want to see a similar similar trajectory with the second movie. They probably can save like a Death Egg counterpart for the third film, but having Dr. Robotnik come back more vicious than ever before after spending what may be an eternity on a mushroom planet, that would just be really epic to see. And what'd be even cooler is if they tried recreating bosses from the Sonic games like the Egg Hornet or the Egg Hog, just some bosses that I'm throwing out right there. I really don't have any specific ones I really want to see yet, and this is pretty much guaranteed to happen to some extent because we saw a snippet of Eggman's transformation at the end of the first film, and so it definitely looks like that's where the writers are going with Dr. Robotnik. I mean, I think the Dr. Robotnik we saw in the first film was just the tip of the iceberg, like I said. Like, it just wasn't fully Dr. Robotnik yet, but he was getting there. And also, just a small note, but apparently Jim Carrey wants to wear a fat suit in the next movie, so that says enough in terms of committing to this transformation.
Jim Carrey
gorging
has
on
commented on that. Like, Jim said, like, for the second one, I should have a giant fat suit. And so he wants to do it, but I think the producers are nervous about how long it would take to get him in and out of the fat suit every day.
So maybe
we'll see.
Yeah. He doesn't
Jim
have a lot to
proposed
do.
Jim suggested that maybe he has an allergic reaction to the mushrooms and we like see him just like swelling up. We'll see. Maybe we'll do it.
At number 5, I would love to see the world Sonic comes from fleshed out a little bit more. Obviously, one of the best things about the Sonic franchise is the lush and colorful environments that seem so outworldly. It'd be amazing to get to spend a little bit more time within Sonic's world in this next installment. People have already theorized that Dr. Robotnik may have infiltrated Sonic's world, which is why Tails has returned in search of Sonic, but this is just pure speculation, but it does make a lot of sense. I will say, in Pat Casey's AMA, he mentioned that they initially thought of having Sonic spend more time within this world, so it's possible some of the ideas may be brought into the sequel. You know, I would love to see like Green Hill a little bit more. I'd love to see Hydro City Zone in particular. I'd love to see maybe Seaside Hill. I'd love to see, it's just so many different Sonic locations I would love to see. Like, I can't even like begin to think of the ones I would love to see them recreate in 3D. But any of the classic trilogy ones would be quite a treat to see just because those designs were just so outworldly and so unrealistic. I guess it would just be really cool to see those CGI animated. You know, after seeing Green Hill Zone in the first movie, I'm like, yes, I want more of this. Please give me more of this. Hopefully with the second film that they give them a bigger budget, and so they actually have the space and the resources to make those worlds. But man, just imagine seeing more of Sonic's iconic locations. Oh my gosh, imagine Sky Sanctuary in 3D. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm getting too excited. But to conclude, I think having more of Sonic's world would just be a really great treat for Sonic fans in particular, and so I really hope they do look into that in the next film. At number 6, I would die to see Knuckles the Echidna in this film. So this is probably the number one thing I want to see in this movie, simply because he is definitely my favorite character of all time in terms of the Sonic franchise. I mean, he is a little bit gullible, he can be a little bit dumb at times, but he's just so lovable, and I just love Knuckles so much. You know, I love the heart and soul that he has, but I also love his like slightly goofy tendencies as well. I just think that he's such an amazing character, and I really want to see him introduced into the second film. I don't care if Tails already is being introduced. I think Knuckles really needs to be introduced as well. And actually, Knuckles would be really easily inserted into this movie simply because the first movie already had the debut of an Echidna tribe after Sonic's power. This is further cemented by Patrick Casey in that interview where he commented that the Echidna tribe was not chosen at random.
Well, I mean, I can't reveal too much, but they are echidnas, and Knuckles is an echidna. So, I mean, I would guess they're related in some way, but what exactly that relationship is, you know, we'll have to see how things develop.
Thank you so much, Nicholas.
But the Echidna tribe was certainly not chosen at random. You know?
Sure.
So I very well can picture Knuckles being a part of this Echidna tribe and being introduced in that manner. Now, I can actually picture Knuckles maybe not fully on board with what the Echidna tribe is doing and hunting down like Sonic the Hedgehog, but Dr. Robotnik could come into the picture and actually convince Knuckles that Sonic is a danger to society and that he must be stopped. I know a lot of people don't like this side of Knuckles, but I honestly think it's something that makes Knuckles really charming, because as tough and as like brave and as awesome as he is, he also has his faults, and he can be a little bit too trustworthy of people, especially because he spends his eternity guarding the Master Emerald and not doing anything else and not really having much social interaction. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable for Knuckles to see the first person that he's seen in a long time and trust them. I mean, he wouldn't know better otherwise. And so I don't know how that would work into this film if Knuckles is a part of the Echidna tribe, because obviously Knuckles would be around people all the time then, but I still think that personality trait of Knuckles can still be intact intact, and we can definitely see it fleshed out a little bit more in this movie. Now, I'm not sure how the Master Emerald could fit into this picture, but if you have the Chaos Emeralds in the film, the Master Emerald is really just another step away from making sense in the film. And number 7, this is probably something that people are going to question from me, but you know what, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I want to see Tom and Maddie travel into Sonic's world, because you know what? They did the impossible. They made human characters in the Sonic franchise that I don't hate. You know, Tom and Maddie were actually pretty fun to watch in the original film. I love the chemistry with each other, and I also love Tom's chemistry with Sonic. It's pretty humorous and feels very modern, you know, just the way that they like phrase certain things and the kind of jokes that they were making. It just felt like it was genuine and natural, and that's why I really didn't mind seeing them take up a significant role in this movie, because they were written really well, you know, especially compared to previous human characters that we will not speak of. But anyway, I think it'd be really interesting to see them explore Sonic's world, sort of being like our eyes in that fantastical world. Although I admit I don't have many ideas as to what they would do if they went there. If you have any, then let me know in the comment section below. But if we go to Sonic's world a little bit more in this movie, I don't want them to sacrifice the time that we will get with Tom and Maddie just because they were such a significant part in the first film, especially Tom in particular. And so I do hope that they still play a big role in this next movie, but at the same time, of course, I want to see more Sonic characters and locations be introduced into this film as well. You know, so I kind of just want everything. Is that too much to ask for? And number 8, I would love to see Amy Rose in this film. So Amy is another character I could simply just envision being an inhabitant in Sonic's world that's heard stories of who he was. I think it'd be cool actually if Sonic was seen as someone dangerous at first, but then as Sonic comes back and saves his world, that's how we see Amy fall in love with him. Or even better, we can see like Amy like try to defend Sonic and just believe in him from the very start. You know, having that like unconditional passionate love is something that Amy is very well known for. But I think it'd be an interesting twist also at the same time to see Amy slowly fall in love with Sonic instead of just seeing her have it from the very beginning. And so I'm not really sure what direction would be better. I'll leave that up to the writers in terms of what they want to do. But in terms of how likely she is to appear, I think the chances are pretty good. Like, she certainly would help to balance the cast out a bit if you're adding Tails and Knuckles in there. Then again though, adding Tails and Knuckles may be a lot to incorporate into the sequel, so we'll have to see. But her chances are probably higher than most other characters at least. And number 9, I would love to see Shadow the Hedgehog be a character in this film. So Shadow the Hedgehog is one of my favorite characters to ever appear in the Sonic franchise. I made a long video on what I love and don't love about his character development. If you wanted to check that out, I'll leave a link in the top right corner. But I'm just going to flat out say it, I'm not going to beat around the bush. There's absolutely no way Shadow's going to be in this film. At most, I could see him being a teaser at the end for a third movie, much like Tails was for his first movie, but that's it. I think the movie franchise itself just has too much it needs to introduce in the second film before it would make sense to bring in Shadow. If Shadow were to be in this movie though, I'd hope that they take a lot from his initial backstory in Sonic Adventure 2 instead of trying to rewrite him to just be a stereotypical edgelord like he was in Sonic Boom. Obviously it doesn't have to be exact detail to detail, but I would like the basic components of Shadow's character development to stay intact. That's ultimately why I don't think he will be in the second movie. It's just too much to cover in the story. However, I am a huge advocate for his addition in the third film. Shadow is by far one of the most interesting characters in the Sonic franchise and also just one of the coolest characters overall. It'd be really cool to see that rivalry get recreated on the big screen because, man, I love seeing it in Sonic Adventure 2. I love seeing it in Sonic X. I would love to see it in the movie medium as well. At number 10, this is actually not something I was even thinking about before making this video, but then I saw these comments from Jeff Fowler where he referred to the films as a cinematic universe. And I will say that like the Sonic universe certainly has more than enough lore to support a cinematic universe. I wouldn't want him to go overboard with creating films for every character imaginable, but you definitely have some characters that would benefit from a solo film. A Knuckles film could focus more on the Echidna tribe's history, for instance. A Shadow film would obviously delve deeper into his backstory as well. Silver could even have a chance to actually get a proper backstory that isn't canon-wise wiped from the main timeline. Like, I don't imagine this universe being that huge, but it's so cool to think about the fact that they're thinking on that level because that tells me that Sonic movies are here to stay if they have anything to say about it. And so, I don't know guys, the future is definitely bright in terms of Sonic's movie career. I mean, his gaming career is kind of like in shambles if I'm being completely honest, but it looks like his movie career is definitely glowing and they can't wait to take it even further. And I did see this comment from like an industry expert that basically said that a sequel is pretty much guaranteed because Paramount is apparently in dire need of some successful franchises. And now that I think about it, I can't think of many Paramount franchises franchises that are really popular right now. Like, I'm not a big movie goer in general, so I don't know for sure if they have any successful films beyond this one. I do know that SpongeBob one is definitely gonna be successful, but other than that, like, I think having another successful franchise like the Sonic franchise would be really great for Paramount, and so I don't know. I'm really curious as to see what the future brings. No matter what the second movie brings, I'm really excited to see what Paramount does in terms of expanding Sonic's universe and really turning this into a full-on franchise, because like I mentioned before, Paramount is definitely looking for more successful film franchises, and since the first movie was such a success, it's only logical to assume that they're going to invest a little bit more into the second movie. And so I'm really curious as to seeing like what they take from the first movie and implement into the second movie, along with a whole bunch of other Sonic lore that I'm really hoping that they incorporate. And if those interviews are anything to go by, they definitely are aware of everything within the Sonic universe and want to incorporate more of it. And so, I'm just really excited to see more of this franchise that I love so much get seen on the big movie screen, you know? If Sonic has to become like a movie franchise from now on, then I guess I'm okay with that, you know? I really do hope the games do get it together eventually. But in the meantime, we can have like a successful movie franchise to branch off of, then I really think that that's great. That's really awesome. Well, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you want to see in the second Sonic movie? Let me know which bullet point specifically you really want to see that I discuss. And if there's a bullet point that I didn't discuss that you really want to see, then let me know that in the comment section as well. And just, yeah, thank you all so much. Okay. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you like videos like these, want to see more in the future. Follow me on Twitter or Twitch, and join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. Special shout out to Reese Gaming, Team Route Sonic Gamer, Andrew Coughlin, Glitch Dolphin, New Gamer Hub, Abraham Muner, Maz Muner, and Angry Studios. These are my patrons / YouTube members. If you'd like to become a patron or YouTube member, get access to a whole bunch of different perks, then please check out the links in the description box below. But alright guys, this is Riders, riding out.